Massive tragedies take innocent lives and acts of violence more and more often. Research shows that we have more days with mass shootings over days without, and for the safety of society, we need to understand what is happening and why. When it comes to the people that do these horrendous acts of violence, we want to understand them. We want answers as to why they choose to do what they do to be able to prevent it from happening again. Fingers point to violent media, specifically violent video games. But is that really the answer? It is a tough discussion to have, but if we're not talking about the right thing, why discuss it at all?
Interesting, and Adam, I want to get your perspective on that. There's an interesting opinion piece in USA Today that quotes the American Academy of Pediatrics, and what they say is kind of startling. They say that the connection between game violence and aggression is as strong as the medical association between cigarette smoking and lung cancer.
Turn to our series on the national conversation surrounding guns, violence, and mental health in the wake of the Connecticut shootings. Public officials and other critics have raised concerns about the role of media and culture, particularly violent video games.
I just hate this world and these human worms feasting on its carcass. My whole life is just cold, bitter hatred, and I always wanted to die violently.
If violent games did increase violence, you should see some sort of increase in crime after a big video game sale, right? But here, researchers found that every time there was a spike in video game sales, there was actually a decrease in assaults afterwards.
Whether that translates into real-world violence or not is an entirely different topic. So I can get extremely aggressive trying to open a carton of milk. Similarly, I can get very aggressive or have very aggressive feelings at playing a video game. I don't think there's any sensible distinction between those types of emotions. The question is, do they translate into the real world? The evidence is insufficient for us to say with any degree of confidence that video games actually cause real-world violence.
He randomized 103 young adults to play no video game, a non-violent video game, a violent video game where they played the good guy, and a violent video game where they played the bad guy. Then they all had to do a frustration task. In other words, they had to engage in some activity which would make it more likely that they would get frustrated and perhaps aggressive. And his study showed no link between playing the games and aggression. But those kids who had a history of playing violent video games in real life had fewer hostile feelings and decreased depression during the frustration task. They had fewer hostile feelings and less depression.
A wide variety of other factors are more important antecedents of aggression than violent video games, including child abuse and neglect, victimization, bullying, drug and alcohol abuse, exposure to violence in the home, neurobiological indicators, low socioeconomic status, and access to guns.